the presentation working? Let's see. All right. So the internet's greatest invention is memes. Not just like Grumpy Cat and dabbing, but also the rapid spread of ideas facilitated by the greatest communications network in human history. The definition of the word meme is a lot broader than just online jokes. The inventor of the word described humans as mimetic creatures, referring to the ideas and patterns that spread like wildfire from person to person through our society. So in this sense, a meme is any concept that is spread by the internet through a network of human minds. So this can include news items and cultural fads, not just the two-sentence comedy that you see reposted on a daily basis. When we look at it from this perspective, memes have actually done a lot of harm to us as well. One of the most significant byproducts of the internet's connectivity is its ability to unite radical thinkers from all around the globe and conglomerating them into these vocal but controversial fringe groups. And in recent years, one of these most prominent fringe groups is the anti-vaccination movement, also known as anti-vaxxers. The anti-vaxxers are the result of yet another meme. They're basically a group that rejects mainstream scientific evidence, preferring to indulge in their own personal anecdotes, and refuting all other outside evidence, propagating this belief in some massive conspiracy instead. So what is the unifying theme between the mechanisms that allow groups like the anti-vaxxers to proliferate and the kind of memes and patterns that we see in our social communication? The answer to this question can be found in a term known as groupthink. So what exactly is groupthink? Well, like many other socio-political words, it comes from one of the most important ingredients in any high school English class, and that would be George Orwell's 1984. So 1984 is a very famous dystopian novel, and in it, it sets up this totalitarian government that is willing to use any means necessary to exert control and oppress its citizens. It can manipulate information and do a lot of other unethical things. And one of the tools that it uses to subjugate its citizens is by creating a new form of vocabulary called newspeak. So newspeak is a controlled language, and it restricts our freedom of thought, our freedom of speech, because the government in 1984 simply doesn't create words for concepts that they don't support, such as liberty or resistance or rebellion. But one of the words that they have created, and that probably doesn't surprise you, is groupthink. So what the government intends to accomplish in 1984 with groupthink is to convince the citizens to fall in line with each other, a kind of lockstep, to just say, oh, look at how polite and obedient your fellow citizens are acting. Why can't you be just like them? And quite frankly, in his novel, George Orwell has created a very effective model for groupthink. For groupthink to be applied successfully, you need to satisfy two conditions. The first is a desire for a harmony within the community, and the second is a lack of objectivity, and this convinces a group of members to turn their gaze inwards and reject all other outside evidence. Another prominent novel that is similar to 1984 and also utilizes groupthink effectively is Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. So these books are very similar. There you have a lot of themes, are compared and contrasted a lot, and it also consists of a totalitarian government that oppresses its citizens, except in this case, the citizens actually want to be oppressed. What the society in Brave New World has accomplished is that through technological advancements, since this is a futuristic dystopia, they've granted citizens access to forms of entertainment that offer instant gratification. For example, they can, at any time, they can watch 4D, full-body experiential movies. They can take doctored drugs that are so powerful that they knock users out for days at a time, and that colloquially taking one is referred to as a vacation, and many other forms of entertainment. So what's happened is that the society is completely oriented around the pursuit for pleasure, and that's how it satisfies the first condition, the desire for harmony. Since everyone's already happy, nobody wants to break the status quo. Related to that is the second condition of the lack of objectivity. Since everyone is already satisfied, nobody wants to engage in learning. In fact, the government has actually outlawed education because, like they say, ignorance is bliss. And when you start learning things, you learn about a lot of unpleasant situations in the world, and it informs your perspective so that you are not as satisfied as you once were. Since education does not exist, that sense of objectivity cannot be developed. So that's both conditions of groupthink met. As modern readers, we should be more terrified of Brave New World than of 1984 because of how its technological advancements parallel our own. So just think about it. Everyone sitting in the audience right now, you have a phone in your pocket. with instant access to limitless shows and movies and other entertainment options that the internet offers. If you walk down the street, you'll see a lot of people with chewing gum in their pockets, sipping soft drinks, and any street in an American suburb, you'll find a McDonald's or a Burger King or any other fast food joint. And what's happened is that in the 19th and 20th centuries, mass manufacturing has led to this rapid commercialization, which has caused everything to become standardized. Everybody wants to get those same ideals. We've quashed our local cultures and our local cuisines for better food at better prices because we fall along that same lines of the pursuit of pleasure. So just like what we see in Brave New World, everything has become standardized and we've conformed to this invisible standard in society without even intentionally trying to do so. So on the internet, it's actually really easy to see this in the form of, this conformity in the form of internet lynch mobs. So here's a few buzzwords from 2019, just as an example. So there's USC, $250,000, Jussie Smollett, and most recently, James Charles. So what all of these figures have in common is that these internet lynch mobs in the form of media outlets, Facebook friends, YouTube comments, everybody just rises up and jumps onto the bandwagon of just slandering their images, trying to crucify these villains and convincing everyone else that you should hate them because that's the right thing to do. So let's just take a step back from this scenario for a bit and discuss the merits of groupthink. So just because everybody agrees that they've done terrible things and that these images are associated with some unsavory concepts, how can that be a bad thing on our part, just because everyone thinks the same thing? Groupthink is not wrong just because everyone agrees, right? So objectively, that is true. And we can look at some other concepts, such as flossing. And for the adults in the room, I'm not talking about this type of flossing. You may have seen your kids do this at some point. So with the flossing dance, it's become a cultural trend. It's pure, it's innocent, it's fun, and it's accessible. And even if you don't appreciate it, everyone will laugh if you do it. Well, maybe not everyone, but it's a form of fun. And flossing is also a demonstration of groupthink, but it's just a social movement that we can all connect to. The real issue with groupthink doesn't come from innocent tactics, innocent techniques like flossing. It comes from how it limits a group's members to turn their gaze inwards. So in decision-making scenarios, groupthink in societies, groupthink is dangerous because it limits a citizen's freedom, because it conforms them to think within a certain spectrum of thoughts and ideas. So returning to the situation of internet lynch mobs, their reaction, our reaction, since probably a lot of us have also gotten frustrated at these fears, we're not entirely unjustified for being angry, but our actions are missing a key concept, moderation. In all instances of groupthink, that critical self-evaluation is absent. So in order to construct a more rational society that is more just and more fair, that constant reevaluation is necessary. But even in societies that are based on the rationality of debate and discussion, there are still ways for governments and other institutions to circumvent that democratic process. So returning briefly to 1984, one of the most famous components from that book that is often cited about it is the thought police. If you don't know what that is, basically it's an institution where the government uses it to conduct surveillance on citizens and ensure no one is thinking illegal thoughts against the government's oppression. So I'm not the first person to say this, but in our society it's not too hard to imagine a thought police existing. So on all of our laptops we have webcams that can be easily hacked into. Everyone's phone, again, carries a GPS tracker so that private tech companies always know your location. And most conspicuously, a lot of students in this room are mandated to wear government-issued IDs that contain a logo of a government organization. And if that doesn't look dystopian, then I don't know what does. But my point in saying this is that there are a lot of examples that we can find in real life that already contain this form of government censorship, this dystopian oppression. Some of those more prominent examples being China's Great Firewall and North Korea's isolationism, where they just warp the facts so that their citizens, even if they are a rational body, will not truly understand what's going on. But those are authoritarian governments. One of the benefits of living in a representative democracy like America is that when the government's based on the power of the people, the government would never do that to us. So in 2013, Edward Snowden actually proved that this is exactly what the American government is doing as well. Maybe not to the same degree, but he leaked documents that prove that the NSA and other agencies are conducting surveillance on American citizens in the name of domestic security. And this is not the first time this has happened in American history. If we look back to 2001, after the terror attacks, Congress passed the USA Patriot Act, which gave them unprecedented power to infringe upon privacy rights. And going even further back to the 1917 Espionage Act, the United States reserved its powers to punish inappropriate speech during wartime. And just a few days ago, this act was actually used again to indict Julian Assange. And the point of this is just that these laws are still active. So clearly there's a legal basis for censorship and restrictions on the freedom of speech, even in countries that are based on principles of freedom. However, when we look at our modern polarized political landscape, and we see how factionalized our political discourse has become, how parties hold completely contradicting beliefs, and how we can't compromise or communicate, we can't blame government censorship for this. Because the American government, with all of their surveillance and a lot of these unethical tactics that have been revealed, they didn't create this polarized landscape. We did that to ourselves. We censored ourselves. So how did this self-censorship come about? Well, the answer lies in online advertising. So back when advertisements first hit the internet, companies realized they could utilize their ads more effectively if they targeted audiences that would already be interested in their products. In other words, if you promise that you can connect consumers with the people, products, and services that are already just like themselves, you're likely to turn a higher profit. And nowadays, these personalization algorithms that they built for advertisements have expanded far beyond to news feeds, YouTube auto-suggestions, and friend networks as well. So what that has allowed is for social media to herd users into compliant little groups that all hold the same beliefs, whether they are right or wrong. So we can see that even in our modern era that emphasizes so strongly the power of technological innovation and the powers of science, our desire for a community still allows the dangers of groupthink to thrive. So what is my point in saying all of this? Am I attempting to fearmonger technology? Am I saying that, oh, the big bad personalization algorithms are going to wipe out human rights as we know it? No, because Hollywood has already shoved that message down our throat for 60 years, and also because technology really can't do that to us yet. So here's a relevant story. So in Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles, there's a short story entitled The Firebirds, in which two Christian characters from Earth are on their way to Mars, and they contemplate what the Martians will be like before they arrive. And one of them says, well, if these Martians are capable of more senses than humans, they may be capable of committing more sins. So you can think about it like this. If we as humans did not have tongues, we would not be capable of committing the sin of gluttony. If we did not have eyes, we would not be capable of lusting. And this same principle can be applied to new technologies. A little exercise that you can do right now on your phone, if either because you're bored and you're already on your phone, or if you want to see if what I'm saying has any truth to it, you can go to Google Images and put in different ethnicities of Americans. And you'll probably find some controversial results. But the explanation for the discrepancies that you'll find is not that Google is racist or that these search algorithms are racist. It's that our technologies reflect the mentalities of its users. Technology is not inherently revolutionary or dangerous. It becomes revolutionary or dangerous depending how it is applied by humans. Technology is simply a vehicle to extend human influence to greater heights. So in summary, in our 21st century, as the tools that's available to us are expanding more rapidly than they ever have before, we must remain vigilant in the values that make us human. We must remember that technological progress is not a guarantee of social progress. Groupthink is a dangerous form of self-censorship, and the danger comes from the fact that we aren't always aware when it applies to us. As a wise philosopher once said, with great power comes great responsibility. So, as the next generation ushering in some of the great powers of technology, it becomes our responsibility to ensure that the human race transitions into the next phase of our history with our moral values intact. Thank you.